Oleg, a wealthy married man just over 40 years old, fell head over heels for Irina, who was 28, during his frequent business trips to one regional capital city. Irina worked as an accountant at the company Oleg regularly dealt with. Their passionate romance lasted nearly a year before it came crashing down when Oleg's wife found out about their affair. The wife, co-founder of her husband's business and a tough cookie herself, threatened to destroy their joint venture if Oleg didn't cut ties immediately. She had 2 sons from this marriage, a 9-year-old and 13-year-old, and family loyalty on her side, including full support from all relatives. Moreover, the economic crisis of 2008 was raging, leaving Oleg feeling financially vulnerable. In the end, common sense prevailed over primal instincts. However, life and my professional experience have taught us that love can never be defeated, it can only be put on pause. After erasing Irina's number from his phone, blocking her online accounts, and avoiding any visits to the city where she lived, peace returned home. But there were no major changes in how Oleg's wife treated him emotionally or intimately. As a successful, physically active man, he felt deprived in bed, which kept alive the conditions that originally drove him to cheat. Underestimating the importance of sex for husbands is often the root cause behind future infidelity. 2 years later, Oleg's wife discovered through secretly monitoring social media profiles that Irina had already remarried and even given birth to a child. To completely bury any lingering hopes Oleg might still harbor, she shared these details with him. However, this news also reduced the wife's willingness to conceive another baby themselves. Before and after reconciling with her husband, Oleg repeatedly suggested having a 3rd child, given their comfortable financial situation. Initially, she agreed but soon lost interest. After all, without competition from another woman bearing children, why bother giving up more time and energy? Life turned out far more complicated than either spouse anticipated. For years after the initial breakup, Oleg unexpectedly ran into Irina again, this time at Moscow airport. He was flying off somewhere while Irina was en route to Turkey for vacation. With both being alone in the terminal, they couldn't help but feel deeply emotional upon seeing each other again. Irina confessed that marrying someone else hadn't been out of love, but rather desperation to forget Oleg. Having a child was part of that same desperate effort. Neither the marriage nor motherhood helped her move past her feelings for Oleg. 2 years later, unable to live with her unloved husband anymore, she divorced him. Now, living single again, raising her daughter, and occasionally passing through Moscow, she'd hoped against hope for some kind of miracle encounter. And here it finally happened. It would be an understatement to say that this reunion touched Oleg profoundly. Old feelings reignited, and once again, he began communicating with Irina. By now, his finances had stabilized considerably. Secretly amassing significant savings unknown to his wife, he could easily cover rent for Irina in Moscow, essentially supporting her fully along with her child. Additionally, his own kids were now teenagers, 13 and 17, reducing his immediate parental responsibilities significantly. His beloved mom, who always supported her daughter-in-law and insisted on keeping the family together, had recently passed away. Thus, many factors that previously pushed toward maintaining the marriage for years ago were now irrelevant. After almost a year of living together in Moscow, things between them seemed perfect. Free from work obligations, Irina frequented gyms, looked great, showered Oleg with care and affection, especially sexually. Happy and content, Oleg secretly invested in real estate development, planning to divorce his wife right after the completion of their new apartment. Yet there remained one problem. Oleg wanted Irina to bear him a child. At 32, Irina had just started recovering from the rigors of caring for a small child. Her daughter was now 4. Plus, being unmarried, knowing Oleg hadn't filed for divorce yet, and considering the fact that the apartment wouldn't be ready anytime soon, she saw no reason to risk another pregnancy. On top of everything, she doubted whether a 46-year-old man who'd abandoned her earlier under pressure from his wife would really follow through with divorcing his current partner. Desperate for a solution, Irina refocused her attention on a colleague back home named Mikhail. This guy, 3 years younger than Irina, worked alongside her as a financial analyst. They'd also had an intimate relationship running parallel to her involvement with Oleg until she got married and went on maternity leave. Unbeknownst to anyone, Irina was playing double agent. Neither Oleg knew anything about Mikhail, nor did Mikhail know about Oleg. Living in Moscow entirely funded by Oleg, while not expecting much beyond financial support, Irina intensified communication with Mikhail. She convinced him to relocate to Moscow too, telling him she'd secured employment opportunities for both of them. Of course, she omitted mentioning that she actually lived with a rich lover and claimed instead to rent an apartment independently while working remotely as a freelance auditor. Unfortunately for Irina, the turning point in her interactions with Mikhail involved repeating the exact script that initially ensnared Oleg. How amazing their lovemaking had been, and how wonderful their relationship had felt. Her impending marriage was a rushed reaction due to cooling emotions with him. It wasn't a love match. She didn't love her husband at all. Pregnancy was meant to heal her heartbreak over losing her true love. Neither marriage nor childbirth made her forget her first love. Therefore, she eventually couldn't stay with her unsupportive husband and ended the marriage. Now she genuinely believed that perhaps fate had prepared her ex-lover to reunite permanently, and she eagerly awaited the moment when fairy tale romance became reality. These messages caught Oleg's eye when he sneakily accessed Irina's phone while she was taking a shower. What prompted him to check wasn't random curiosity. He noticed that Irina's daughter called him twice by the wrong name, Michael. Jealousy led him straight to her private messages. When confronted, Irina struggled to explain herself adequately. Instead of lying convincingly, she tried humorously claiming the entire exchange was staged specifically so Oleg would find it. According to her version, it was a clever way to provoke jealousy, forcing Oleg to speed up his divorce proceedings and move in officially. Furthermore, she argued that Mikhail didn't exist anyway. These messages were sent by a friend pretending to be a fake suitor. But Oleg, no fool himself, quickly pieced together the truth. If Michael weren't real, why would Irina's kid call him by that name? Clearly, virtual conversations via phone or Skype must have taken place. Also, since there was clearly another man involved, it explained why Irina hadn't become pregnant despite dating Oleg for a whole year. Why would you carry a child with someone you're not committed to? Unsurprisingly, the conversation between Oleg and Irina escalated rapidly. So much so that when Oleg returned home, he blurted everything out to his wife. He thought sharing the painful revelation with her would ease his own pain over what transpired with Irina. Surprisingly enough, though, his wife handled the situation calmly and wisely. She forgave her confused husband for falling into his own trap. Still, Oleg suffered greatly, prompting him to seek therapy extensively, ultimately landing him in my office. His core question remained unchanged. Why did Irina treat me so cruelly? Everything between us was so beautiful. It took time for him to grasp typical female reasoning patterns commonly seen in similar situations. These typically include considerations like, it's hard to trust a man who has already walked away once and vanished forever. Even harder to rely on a man whose wife has demonstrated impressive skills in fighting for her husband. A 30-year-old man seems obviously more appealing than a 46-year-old. Especially because the younger guy isn't married, whereas the older one is. Besides, the 30-year-old has good education and promising career prospects. Most importantly, a married man dragging his feet filing for divorce poses enormous risks for his mistress. Oleg's psychological recovery took considerable time. Firstly, he learned about betrayal precisely when he was experiencing peak love. His feelings were brutally crushed mid-sentence. Secondly, realizing those words about irreplaceable feelings for him, which supposedly prevented her from staying married to her child's father, were merely skillful manipulation repeatable elsewhere, devastated him. Afterward, according to Oleg, he drifted aimlessly through life, unsure of whom to believe or hold on to. Compared to the insincerity of his loved girl, he quipped, knife wounds and gunshots from him men he'd faced in the turbulent 90s were minor inconveniences. As we see from this tale, lies are knives too. Lying in love hurts worse than a killer's blade. I can't help noting there's dozens of such tragic stories in my practice, mostly involving women as victims rather than men.